हमें इस स्टोरी हमें इनकी इसकी शॉर्ट्स को देख रहे आज। चलो मिनिया बोलो, चलो चलो अब पहली शॉर्ट से स्टार्ट करते हैं, चलो।
When my dad found out he was refereeing my soccer game, he told me in the tunnel, "I'm not playing favorite son, don't expect special treatment." I smiled because I actually wanted a fair game, but then the other team's striker Mason elbowed my ribs in the air, and I fell. But Dad just gave me a yellow card for diving and gave the ball to Mason. I thought he'd just missed the foul, but next time I had the ball, Mason kicked me in the shin. I went down, clutching the already forming bruise, but Dad just shrugged and said, "I told you I'm not playing favorites." That's when Mason whispered in my ear, "I'm gonna injure you," and he won't even call it. My blood ran cold, and the rest of the game Mason kicked my calves and dragged my hair. Dad never blew his whistle. I remember seeing the bruises covering my shins and getting so angry I wanted to leave. But then Mason slide tackled so hard I heard a crunch. I instantly dropped and screamed in pain. Sure, my legs were broken, but Dad finally blew his whistle. Foul. He showed Mason a yellow card, and Mason flailed his arms. That's not a foul. You're only saying that because he's your son. I remember laughing at how stupid that was because he'd been fouling me all game. But then suddenly, I saw Mason's dad in the crowd. "You're cheating, ref." He was pointing at my dad. That wasn't a foul. He left the barricade and started running towards us with his fists clenched. He punched my dad in the jaw before anyone could react and stood over him. "How's that for a foul? My boy isn't fouling anyone. Stop helping your son." Mason grinned, and when I looked at Dad on the ground, I got angry and stood up despite my bones crunching. "Your son's been injuring me all game, you idiot. Don't touch my dad." I shoved Mason's dad in the chest. His eyes went wide, and he cocked his arm back to swing at me. But then security guards tackled him. They dragged him off screaming, while Mason shouted, "Let him go." When Dad stood up, he immediately ordered Mason off the pitch. Mason stormed off stomping his cleats. I laughed hard, but then Dad turned to me and pulled out a red card. "That's for assaulting a fan. You're out of the game too." My smile dropped. When my dad found out he was refereeing my soccer game, he told me my safety harness unlocked at the exact moment the roller coaster took off. I tried as hard as I could to alert the ride operator, but they were way too busy doom scrolling to notice my panicked screams. The coaster clicked up the first hill. My harness had raised fully above my head. At this point, the only thing holding me in my seat was gravity. We approached the top of the hill, and the fear took over. This was the craziest roller coaster in the country. The first drop was over 500 feet, followed by a huge loop and a tunnel. My screams grew louder as we reached the top of the hill, but the ride kept inching upwards. There was one final click, and we stopped at the top. My life flashed before my eyes at 10 times speed before the cart dropped over the edge. The G-forces were strong enough to lift me 8 inches out of my seat. The wind nearly blinded me, and my heart was pounding so fast that I thought it might stop completely. When we hit the bottom, my body slammed down with so much force that I thought I broke my tailbone. I had to focus through the pain if I wanted to survive what came next. The coaster began to ramp up for the huge loop. The coaster was designed to stop dead at the top of the loop to build suspense. As it began to peak, I began to fall out of my seat. My body fully left the coaster, but I was able to grab my harness. I hung there for what seemed like forever, holding on with all the strength in my body. My grip gave out just as the cart started to move again. I was falling straight down. By some crazy luck, the coaster reached the bottom of the hill exactly when I did. I landed perfectly in my empty seat. I ducked down at the precise moment we came to the tunnel. The raised harness clipped the ceiling and snapped completely off. When we came out on the other side, we were back at the start of the track. I jumped out, kissed the ground, and promised myself I'd stick to bumper cars for the rest of my life. My safety harness unlocked at the exact moment the roller coaster took off. I handed a glass of water to my almost dead grandpa, but he smacked it across the room. He raised a finger at the photo on his wall and yelled, "Forget the water! I buried a treasure on that mountain." In the photo, he was young, standing on that summit with a shovel over his shoulder, and his chest rattled as he begged, "Take me up there before I go to heaven." My dad walked in with his new girlfriend on his arm and laughed. "He's demented, buddy. There's no treasure up there. Don't let him fill your head with dirt." She pulled him out the door while he shook his head, but Grandpa's eyes kept glaring at the photo, so I grabbed my new driver's license and smiled. "Let's go get that treasure, Grandpa." I loaded Grandpa, his wheelchair, and his old shovel into his rusted truck. Dad sprinted out yelling, "Stop! There's no treasure!" while the girlfriend honked from the convertible, but I pulled away with my heart slamming in my chest from excitement. Halfway up the mountain road, the truck jerked and died, refusing to start back up. I popped the hood with shaking hands, but I woke up to "Never Gonna Give You Up" by Rick Astley blasting outside my window at 7 a.m., and I jumped out of bed already laughing. I already knew it was my boy Foley, because because he'd been Rick-rolling me every Saturday for 8 years straight. It was the only time I got to see him because he was always working. But this time I grabbed my brand new boombox because today I was finally ready to Rick-roll him back. I ran down to the front door still in my boxers and holding the boombox over my head on full volume. But when I opened the door, I froze because there was a kid standing there with Foley's duct-taped boombox. Where's Foley? He gripped the handle tighter. He's not here. I'm Theo, his little brother. He told me I had to play this until he came out. My smile died. Where is he? The kid pulled a folded note from his jacket. I thought you knew. I unfolded the note with shaking hands. By the time you're reading this, I'll be gone. I've been battling cancer for 3 years. The Saturdays pranking you were the best part of my week. Sorry I never told you, but take care of my brother for me. 8 years. I thought I was the one getting pranked. Those Saturdays were him holding on. Theo nodded at the boombox in my hand. He said you'd know what to do next. I forced back my tears, raised the boombox over my head, and pressed play. I woke up to Never Gonna Give You Up by Rick Astley. I bought a used laptop at a pawn shop, and when I set it up, I found a folder on the desktop called Help Me. I figured it was junk left behind by the last owner and deleted it, but when I looked back at the desktop, it was there again. I wiped the entire hard drive and reinstalled the operating system, but when the laptop finally rebooted, the folder was still there. My stomach dropped, and I stared at it for a long moment. Then I opened it. There were 214 photos in the folder, and the first dozen were completely normal. The photos were of a girl around my age with curly hair and a gap in her teeth, taking selfies in a bathroom mirror or laughing with friends at a school dance. When I saw the 8th photo, another bathroom mirror selfie, the hair on my arm stood up because it looked like there was a dark, person-sized shape standing against the wall behind her. I told myself it was a shadow and kept scrolling, but a few photos later, she was at a park, and the same shape was standing half hidden behind a tree in the background while she crouched petting her dog, completely unaware it was there. In photo 23, it had stepped out from behind the tree. My hands started shaking, and I almost put the laptop down for good, but I kept scrolling anyway. In each photo, the figure was getting closer to the girl. The final photo was another mirror selfie, and this time the shape stood directly behind her, close enough to breathe on her neck if it had a mouth. It took 20 minutes of reverse image searching to find out her obituary. Her name was Violet. She was 16, and 6 months ago, she had died in a freak accident at her home. The last photo in that folder was dated the day before she died. My hands were shaking as I ran outside, got in my car, and drove to the address in the obituary. I could not be the only living person who knew what was going on. A woman with the same dark curly hair as Violet opened the door. Can I help you? I nodded. I bought a laptop at a pawn shop and I found photos on it. I think they belong to your daughter. Her whole body went still. Where exactly did you get it? I told her the name of the shop, and before I could say anything else, she reached out and yanked the laptop out of my hands. I took a deep breath. There's something in the background of the photos, a shape that was getting closer in every picture. I think she was trying to document it, trying to get proof of something. She glared at me. Do not come back here. The door shut in my face before I could say another word. I drove home in silence, and when I got home, I grabbed my phone out of my pocket and pulled up the selfie I'd taken that morning before school. In the photo, there was a person-shaped shadow behind me. It was much closer than it should have been. I bought a used laptop at a pawn shop, and when I set it up, while serving in Iraq, Colonel Sanders called me into his tent and slid a picture of a man with a beard across his desk. I set down my sniper rifle and picked it up. This man's forces took out our entire Unit 12A. We need him taken care of. My stomach dropped so hard the picture fell from my hands. Unit 12A was my unit. It had all my best friends. The only reason I didn't go with them on their mission is because I was the sniper. I nodded slowly and stepped out of the tent with shaking legs. I pulled out my binoculars and looked in the distance, scoping the camp my target was. I could see him hovering over a map and clenched my jaw. Easy work. I slowly walked to my barracks and started getting into my sniper camouflage gear. Tears fell from my eyes as I gripped the framed elementary photos of me and my friends from our unit. We'd grown up together and enlisted together, and I was about to take revenge. But just as I grabbed my sniper rifle, Colonel Sanders walked in. Change of plans. The target has relocated, and you must stand down. That's a direct order. He marched out before I could respond, and I walked out of my tent feeling so crushed I was almost crying. Finding targets after relocation can take months, but when I pulled out my binoculars, I couldn't believe what I saw. The target was still right there, in the exact same position. I told Colonel Sanders and tried to hand him my binoculars, but he got in my face. Stand down. That's a direct order. You either listen or you'll leave on a dishonorable discharge. Something felt seriously wrong in my gut when he said that. So that night I got in my gear, kissed the necklace my friends gave me, and snuck out. Colonel Sanders' tent was right there, and I knew if he saw me, I was screwed. I wasn't sure if I could do this, but but through my binoculars, the target was still there. I started slowly shuffling into position, and 2 hours later, I was lying in the bushes, 1.1 miles away from the target, just close enough. I looked through the scope, and my heart stopped in my throat. Colonel Sanders was right there, shaking hands and laughing with the target, drawing on a map of the battleground my friends died on. I realized Colonel Sanders was the reason my friends were dead. Tears filled my eyes, and my hands shook for the first time in years as I placed them on the trigger. Then I put the Colonel's chest in the center of my crosshair. This is for my friends. I took a deep breath and pulled the trigger. Colonel Sanders was fried chicken. While serving in Iraq, Colonel Sanders called me into his tent and slid a picture of a man. I was at the beach with my sister. While serving in Iraq, Colonel Sanders called me into. I was at the during my football game. A little kid hopped the barrier and started sprinting onto the pitch, heading directly for me. He juked so sharp the guard chasing him slipped, and I grinned, secretly wanting him to make it because it was the cutest thing. I threw my arms open to hug him, but then he punched me square in the face. This is for ruining my dad's parlay. He lost our house because he scored. Guards ripped him off, and I lay there bleeding and regretted wanting him to reach me. During my football game, a little kid hopped the barrier and started sprinting onto the pitch, heading directly for me. I got stuck inside a water slide, and the lifeguard kept sending kids down until I became the cork in a human soda bottle. It was a giant tube slide at Splash Kingdom, shaped like a blue snake wrapped around the tower. I only went because Ben yelled, "Last one down buys fries." The second I dropped in, my swim trunks caught on a loose screw inside the first curve. The slide yanked me backward, the waistband snapped tight, and I stopped dead with water rushing over my face. I slapped the wall and yelled, "I'm stuck!" But the slide swallowed my voice. Something slammed into my feet. A kid yelled, "Move!" I yelled, "I can't!" He yelled, "That's not helpful!" Another kid hit him, and the three of us folded together like wet lawn chairs. Above us, the lifeguard blew his whistle and sent someone else. That kid arrived feet first, apologized, and kicked me in the ribs. The tube filled with echoing screams, squeaking skin, and one kid shouted, "My goggles are in my mouth!" At the bottom, I could hear parents clapping for kids who never came out. Ben's voice floated up from the pool. "Where is everybody?" A fifth kid crashed into the pile, holding an inflatable shark. The shark squealed against the wall and wedged under my armpit. The water kept pushing. We slid 1 inch, stopped, slid another inch, and stopped harder. For one terrifying second, nobody laughed. A metal hatch clanged open above us. A maintenance guy shouted, "Nobody move!" Every kid in the tube yelled, "We can't!" He muttered something about water pressure, reached inside with a screwdriver, twisted something above my hip, and my waistband popped free. The entire slide made a deep gulping sound. My stomach lifted. The pile behind me shifted. "Uh-oh," the kid with the shark whispered. The water hit us all at once. I shot out first, skipped across the splash pool, and landed sitting upright in a stranger's nachos. 7 kids launched out behind me like human popcorn. The inflatable shark landed on the lifeguard's head. A water shoe slapped Ben in the chest. The last kid popped out holding the sign that said, "One rider at a time." I stood up wearing 3 pairs of goggles and ketchup sauce on my shoulder. Ben stared at me. "So do I still get fries?" I got stuck. I unpaused Billie Jean, and the song started blasting from my 4-year-old sister's stomach. My AirPod case. It was It was 1773, and the Boston Tea Party was just 2 days away when my dad slammed his teacup down on the table. "I know what those protesters are planning, and I'll kill you if you even dare to go near the King's tea ship. They'll hang whoever they catch." I nodded. "Of course, Dad." But that night, I waited for his candle to go out, smeared ash on my face, took his axe off its peg, and climbed out my window. When I got there, half of Boston stood along the water watching 3 dark ships, and nobody made a sound. A man at the gangplank gripped my shoulder. "No names, no talking. If you're caught, you hang alone, and don't rat anyone out." I swallowed hard and stepped aboard. We split chest after chest, and poured the tea over the rail. Dust rising in clouds, leaves piling past my ankles, while a King's warship sat out in the dark with its guns. But halfway through, a chest slipped and cracked against the rail, and the sound rolled across the harbor. Every man froze with his axe in the air, and my heart slammed so hard, I thought the crew could hear it. The lanterns stayed dark, so we kept swinging. By the end of the night, so much tea had piled up out of the shallow water instead of sinking, so me and the other men climbed down and shoveled it under. When I sneaked back home and sat down for breakfast, Dad didn't say a word, until he reached across the table, picked something out of my hair, and set it down between us. 1 wet leaf of tea. I stopped breathing. He stood up. "You went last night, didn't you?" I flinched, bracing for him to beat my eye. Instead, he walked past me, took the tea tin off the shelf, and shook every last leaf into the fire. "No son of mine drinks the King's tea. You'll be drinking mine." That was my dad telling me he was proud, in the only way he knew how. It was 1773, and the ball. After a whole week of building, I was about to press the last piece onto my Lego spaceship when my stepbrother yeeted it across the room. Before I could grab it, he lifted me up and slammed me back first onto my ship, and I felt each Lego crack my spine. He laughed. "Grow up, bruh. Legos are baby toys." He walked off smiling ear to ear while I limped up, my ship scattered across the floor. He did this every single time, and I could never once finish a build. So I got back down and started from scratch, my back aching, hoping this was the last time. But the next day, I got it to the last piece again, and my stepbrother snatched it right out of my fingers. He dangled it above my head, smirking. "Aw, want your baby piece? Jump for it." I knew he was rage baiting, but I jumped anyway, and he yanked it higher, laughing every time I missed. "Give it back!" But he took off, and I chased him down the hall. My fingers grazed the piece in his fist before he stuck his leg out and tripped me, and I hit the floor hard. I scrambled up and sprinted after him into the bathroom, where he held the piece over the toilet. "You'll never be able to finish your stupid baby Lego set." I reached out for it, but he dropped it in and flushed, laughing. Then he grabbed the back of my neck and dunked my head toward the bowl. "Go get it, loser!" I came up soaked, my whole body trembling with anger, and I knew I had to do something. So that night, I stayed up prepping the biggest Lego plan of my life. The next morning, I built my best Lego set yet, a full castle, and set it in the middle of my room as bait. "Finally, I'm about to finish a set." He stormed in, already laughing, but he didn't notice the carpet of Legos I'd spread across the floor, and his bare feet came down right on them. "Ow! What the?" He stumbled back into the door, and it tipped the bucket of Legos I balanced on top, burying him. I laughed as he thrashed, slipped, and came crashing down spine first onto the pile, right where he'd slammed me 100 times. He clawed at the floor, a million Legos stuck to his skin, and screamed, "I never want to see Legos again." Then I knelt by my castle and calmly pressed on the last piece. "Why are you scared of baby toys?" After a whole week of building, I was about to press the last piece onto my Lego spaceship when my stepbrother yeeted it across the room. Before I could grab it, he lifted me up and slammed me back first onto my ship, and I felt each Lego crack my spine. He laughed. "Grow up, bruh. Legos are baby toys." He walked off smiling ear to ear while I limped up, my ship. I couldn't believe my eyes when I went to grab a towel from the closet. Instead of finding fresh linens, I found a full-grown circus clown tied up and gagged. This didn't make any sense. His face was painted exactly like the clown who was outside at this very moment performing for my birthday. I pulled the gag down from his mouth. He shouted at me, "You have to untie me right now. Everyone at your birthday party is in danger of being killed." I didn't know what to make of this situation, but I grabbed a pair of scissors from a side table by the door and cut his restraints. "Come on," he said. "We don't have much time." As we were running for the back door, the clown tried his best to bring me up to speed. His brother had just escaped from a mental hospital after he killed their mom. He found me here as I was getting ready for this gig. He knocked me out and stuffed me in that closet. "Your friends are in real danger." When we got to the backyard, the killer clown had my sister in a box and announced, "For my next trick, I will saw this little girl in half." The crowd looked on with amazement, thinking it was only a trick. "Stop right now. I know who you really are, clown. You're not hurting anyone." The killer clown leapt forward to attack me with the saw. Just then, his brother, with all the skill of a real professional clown, whipped a pie at the impersonator's face, leaving an imprint in the pie tin on impact. Once he was down, I grabbed the bat from next to the piñata and gave each of his legs a hard whack. "You're not going anywhere." The real clown made handcuffs out of a balloon animal and restrained the killer. The impersonator was sent back to the asylum, and the real birthday clown got a 5-star review. I couldn't believe my eyes. I shut my parents' bedroom door and army crawled back to my room, ready to beat my Fortnite kill record. While it loaded, I'd switch out the keyboard for the silent one under my bed and put cushions in front of the monitor fans so it didn't make any sound and I wouldn't get caught. When I finally got into the game, I'd pump my fist and whisper, "Mission complete," because I had to beat my kill record. But I knew if I got caught, my parents would ship my arm to military school. But one night, I just slayed my opponent when I got third-partied by the... I bought a parrot for my 12th birthday and swore I'd give it the best life possible. But the next day I came home and saw my brother swinging his baseball bat at my parrot's cage. My parrot was screeching and cowering in fear while my brother laughed. It sounds so much cooler when it's scared. I pushed him away and told him to get out, but he just dropped his bat and laughed. "I'm not done with that parrot yet." He walked out and I instantly stuck my hand through the bars, promising my parrot I wouldn't let my brother hurt it. But next morning I had to leave for school, and when I returned, my parrot had a bruise on its wing and was now mimicking the sounds sounds of a bat hitting its cage. I instantly knew my brother had tormented it, so I stormed into his room with my fists clenched in anger. I know you hurt my parrot, but he just smirked. I didn't hurt your stupid parrot, but if I did, what would you even do about it? I went red and stormed out of the room, then immediately ordered a camera. I felt crazy actually putting a camera in my room and aiming at my parrot. Then I pet my parrot and left. 15 minutes later, I already had a notification. My brother and his friend were in my room. My brother was batting the cage, while his friend held a lighter through the bars, flicking the female near my parrot. I instantly sprinted home with my stomach in knots. My parrot was screeching, flying against its cage, trying to get out. I ran at them, but then my brother hit the cage one more time, and my parrot's eyes closed shut. It collapsed and slumped to the cage floor, having a heart attack from the fear. I screamed, "No!" And that's when my brother and his friend turned around. I guess I was hitting your parrot after all, so what are you gonna do about it? Tears of rage filled my eyes, as I didn't care that they were bigger. I ran straight at them without thinking and shoved them hard. They tipped and fell out of our window, screaming as they hit the bushes. They lay there, and that's when I grabbed my bird food I used to feed my parrot. I dumped the entire bag on the window and watched as dozens of birds swarmed them and began pecking them. Then I turned to my parrot, an unconscious parrot, and picked it up from its cage. My face lit up. It had a heartbeat. I bought a parrot for my 12th birthday and swore I'd give it the best life possible. But the next day I came home and saw my brother swinging his baseball bat at my parrot's cage. My parrot was screeching and cowering in fear while my brother laughed. It sounds so much cooler when it's scared. I pushed him away and told him to get out, but he just dropped his bat and laughed. I'm not done with that parrot yet. He walked out, and I instantly stuck my hand through the bars, promising my parrot I wouldn't let my brother hurt it. But next morning, I had to leave for school, and when I returned, my parrot had a bruise on its wing and was now mimicking the sounds of a bat hitting its cage. I instantly knew my brother had tormented it, so I stormed into it. I had just eaten a $40 steak when I waved my hand in the air and called out, "Waiter, waiter, this steak is cold. I want a refund." The waiter walked over and shook his head. "Are you insane? You already ate the steak." I told him I was perfectly sane, and the steak was obviously cold. My date sat across from me with her mouth wide. I was playing cards with other gang members when my phone lit up with a text. "We'll be there in 10 minutes to arrest."
Bye, guys.